Shivering Shackleton. Explorer Ernest Shackleton didn't believe in leaving anything to chance. When he wanted his crew for his latest perilous polar journey, he simply put an ad in the newspaper. Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. Doesn't seem like the best job. Incredibly, 5,000 men applied. And then Shackleton picked the 28 luckiest. So we have Sir Ernest Shackleton from Ireland. Young Ernest was often in trouble at school. His teachers said he spent too much time daydreaming. And it was true. In Ernest's dreams, he wasn't stuck in a boring lesson. He was a top polar explorer. And guess what? Yup, his dream came true. When Ernest was 16, he ran away to sea. He almost reached the South Pole twice, once with Captain Scott. But he was beaten back by woeful weather. Now enterprising Ernest had a new idea and a daring plan. He wanted to cross the icy Antarctic continent from the Weddell Sea to the Ross Sea via the South Pole. Shackleton spent months frantically raising funds and preparing for his trip. And then on August 8, 1914, the boss, that was Shackleton's nickname, but he wasn't a bossy boots. Shackleton was a born leader. But he never got his men to do anything he wouldn't do himself. So they followed him through thick and thin. So the boss and his hand-picked crew set sail from England on board of the Endurance, Shackleton's sturdy ship. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? But would you have volunteered? Shackleton's plan was to land on Vauxhall Bay in the Weddell Sea, and then to make the crossing in 100 days using dog sledges. Another ship would be waiting to pick them up at McMurdo Sound on the Ross Sea. So this was his proposed route. That was what he was planning to do. Ahead of them lay a polar track so dangerous, no one had ever tried it before. Fortunately, Shackleton and his courageous crew were made of stern stuff, which was just as well. You see, right from the start, their daring trip didn't exactly go to plan. Icebound in Antarctica. Let's read the progress report. Polar Progress Report 1, date January 1915. Location, Weddell Sea, Antarctica. We are stuck here. Progress so far. After leaving its last port of call on the island of South Georgia, the Endurance heads south into the ice-infested waters of the Weddell Sea. At first, the Endurance rams a clear passage through the ice. Then disaster strikes. On January 19th, the pack ice is so thick that the Endurance sticks fast. The whole sea freezes around her, and soon she's frozen solid, like a stick in a lollipop. The men try to smash open the channel with picks and shovels, but it makes no difference. Worse still, their destination at Vauxhall Bay is just one day sail away. Earth-shattering fact before we go on. The Weddell Sea was named after English sea captain James Weddell, who set off to Antarctica in 1822 in search of seals to hunt. Fortunately for Weddell, the weather that year was amazingly mild and clear. In fact, Weddell wrote that not a particle of ice of any description was to be seen. Bet Shackleton wished he'd had half of Weddell's luck. Polar Progress number 2. October 1915. Still Weddell Sea. We are now here. For months, the drifting ice drags the Endurance further and further from land. The men are forced to spend winter on board the trapped ship. They can't even tell anyone where they are. The ship's radio doesn't work. When spring comes, they hope to find a clear channel through the ice floes. But spring's a very, very long way off. Shackleton tries to keep the men's spirits up. They play football on the ice and put on plays to pass the time, but boredom quickly sets in. And every day, the ice tightens its grip on the ship. Soon she begins to crack up and spring leaks after leaks. On October 27th, Shackleton reluctantly gives order to abandon ship. Polar Progress Report number 3, November 1915. Location, Weddell Sea. Ship sinks here. The men salvage what they can from the ship and pack it onto the sledges. They also haul down the 3 lifeboats. Then they set up camp on the ice. Shackleton's dreams of crossing the continent are well and truly shattered. He tells the disappointed men that they'll try to head for home. Then, on November 21st, they watch in horror as the Endurance finally breaks up and sinks beneath the ice. Progress Report number 4, April 1916, Elephant Island. Progress so far. For the past 6 months, Shackleton and his men have been drifting on a raft of ice. They hope that the ice will carry them within reach of land, hundreds of kilometers away, but their hopes are soon dashed. The ice starts to crack up and their camp's no longer safe. On April 9th, Shackleton orders the lifeboats to be launched in a desperate attempt to reach land. Despite badly frostbitten hands, the men take turns to row. At night they camp on an ice floe, but it's horribly dicey. One night the ice splits open and a man plunges into the perishing sea in his sleeping bag. Luckily, Shackleton manages to pull him out. Seconds later, the ice closes over again. After that, they sleep in the boats. 6 days later, they reach the isolated Elephant Island. It's a year and a half since they last set foot on solid ground. Exhausted and hungry, many of the men are at a breaking point. Polar Progress Report number 5, April 1916. Location, Southern Ocean. Progress so far. No sealers or whalers come near Elephant Island, so there is no hope of rescue. Shackleton decides to go for help. With 5 volunteers, he sets out in the James Caird, one of his lifeboats. His daring plan is to head to the whaling station on South Georgia, from where they set out so long ago. Trouble is, to get there, he has to cross some 1,200 kilometers of Southern Ocean, the world's most dangerous sea. But there's nothing else for it. Without help, the men left behind on Elephant Island won't last long. The journey's a nightmare. The waves and gale-force winds threaten to capsize the small boat. Thick ice cakes the deck and has to be chipped off before the weight of it sinks the boat. The men are frozen and soaking wet, and their sleeping bags ice over, so there's nowhere warm to rest. Besides, finding a tiny island in the middle of a vast ocean is like finding a needle in a haystack. Polar Progress Report number 6, May 1916. Location, South Georgia. After 14 dreadful days at sea, the men finally sight land. Just in time, 2 of them are very close to death. But the sea is much too choppy to land safely. Vicious winds drive them towards the cliffs, where the little boat will surely be smashed to smithereens on the jagged rocks. This must be the end of the road. Then, 3 days later, on March 10th, they somehow manage to steer into a small sheltered bay. Now for a good long rest. But their awful ordeal's not over yet. Unfortunately, the whaling station lies on the other side of the island. Polar Progress number 7, May 1916, Stormness Bay, South Georgia. On the afternoon of May 20th, 3 men stumble into Stormness Bay on South Georgia. They're filthy. wild-eyed and dressed in rags, and the first people they meet run away. For the past 36 appalling hours, they've slogged nonstop over lethal, glacier-covered peaks to reach the whaling station. It's a miracle they've made it alive, especially as their only equipment was one measly rope, an ice axe, a camping stove, and 3 days' food rations stuffed into their socks. They've had no maps to guide them. No one has ever crossed the island before, but at least they're finally safe. Polar Progress Report number 8, August 1916. Location, Elephant Island. After 3 false starts, Shackleton sails back to Elephant Island to rescue his stranded man. Since he last saw them, they've suffered horribly. They've been forced to spend the winter living under their upturned boats and eating seal bones and seaweed stew. And they've almost given up hope of being saved. When they spot Shackleton's ship, they can't believe their eyes. So Shivering Shackleton's extraordinary story has a happy ending. Amazingly, he and his intrepid men survived against all the odds. Not a single life was lost in the greatest tale of polar exploration ever. Sadly for Shackleton, his dreams of crossing the Antarctic continent were well and truly dashed. But daring British explorer Sir Vivian Fuchs succeeded where Shackleton had failed. In 1957 to 1958, Fuchs led the British Commonwealth Trans-Antarctic Expedition, which made the first overland crossing of Antarctica from the Weddell Sea to the Ross Sea. Traveling by snowcat, a tractor that runs on metal tracks like a tank, and dog sledge, Fuchs and his 12-man party made the grueling 3,500-kilometer journey in 99 days. And they are in their snowcat. Could you be a polar pioneer? If someone gave you a pemmican, what would you do with it? A. Eat it. B. Wear it. Or C. Feed it to the dog. Well, both answer A and C are right. Pemmicans are a nourishing food which polar explorers and their pooches used to scoff. It was crammed full of energy to keep them warm. Feeling peckish? Fancy rustling up some pemmican for tea? Here's the revolting recipe. Pemmican pie recipe. Ingredients: dried meat, beef or horse, fat or lard, crushed biscuits, onion or other veg optional, curry powder also optional. What to do? Mix all the ingredients together. Pack into a box or tin. Note: that's all there is to it. Easy, isn't it? You don't need to cook it, and it'll last for years and years, so it's brilliant for long sledging trips. And you thought school dinners were disgusting. So you've seen enough ice to last a lifetime, and you're looking forward to a change of scene. Somewhere nice and peaceful where you can drift along gently and watch the world go by. Well, you're in luck. Hurry up and hop on board. There are still a few places left on Miles's relaxing river tour.